My name is Zirimwabagabo, the author of the book Foundations Matter. I spent my first 7 years in Rwanda in the 50s before going to exile in 1959. My childhood, therefore, is a combination of being born in Rwanda in colonial days, and then in my early childhood being exposed to refugeedom, living as a refugee in foreign lands, in hard times and hard work. Then, which looked to be difficult life, but I know now that it is the life that shaped my life. My education was fairly normal. In Uganda, where I grew up, we were not segregated. We went to school like other children. Similar kind of education like we have today, except mine was coupled with work, which you don't see very much in primary and secondary education today. Growing up in exile made me more self-aware as a refugee, and therefore someone who had to work extra hard to make sure that I survive, because I did not have the benefits and the privileges of being in my own country. Normally, growing up in your own country, you expect that your government owes you something. It owes you peace and security. It owes you a place to go to school, if not for free, at least as a right. And so I grew up in exile, not knowing that I will ever have a home of my own, a home country. So I was preparing myself to work hard to survive under all circumstances, which was difficult, but looking back, I think it was a good thing. Not to justify instability in countries to force people into exile, but those circumstances did shape who I am today. As I said, which is also normal for most people, you go to school and pursue education so that you can be useful in society. And that requires you to learn certain skills, and these skills lead you to do certain things professionally. Now, in my case, I studied to be an agronomist. And when I finished university, I was lucky to be offered a job before I even started looking. It was a job to teach agriculture. In Uganda those days, governments were becoming aware that Uganda is an agricultural country, and therefore learners need to learn how to be to grow things, because then they can go back to their own villages and help the parents and other community members. So I went to teach, but in that school where I went, which is the same school I went to in secondary school, they had a work program. Students were required to work, and students were paid for their work, but the money they were paid went towards their school fees, which was also a good thing for young people to start to feel that they are contributing for their own education. So I was in charge of that program too. But on top of that, I was also in charge of growing food to feed the students. So I combined all that work, and that was my earliest experience in life outside childhood. And because I was working very hard, I gained a lot of experience, and that attracted the attention of other institutions, in particular, in this case, the World Food Program. Those days, because of instability created by bad politics by a president then called Idi Amin, the economy was in bad shape. All government schools were receiving food aid from World Food Program. And the World Food Program had done this so long that they were getting tired of doing it. So somehow, World Food Program discovered that there was a school that was food self-sufficient. And that is the school I was working in. So they came to see what we were doing, and shortly after that, they offered me a job to come and do what I was doing in that school for all government schools in Uganda. Now that's how my work experience working for different institutions began. I didn't end up working for those schools in Uganda because I didn't qualify for that kind of international job in a country where I was supposed to be a national. The argument was that if you have those skills as a national, you should serve through your government, not through World Food Program. So World Food Program in Uganda decided to organize for me a job outside of Uganda to go and do pretty much what I was doing. So I ended up going into a country of Lesotho, where I spent 10 years doing all sorts of things to do with education and agriculture and so on and so forth. And of course, working at this school was the foundation of other responsible activities that I was able to do, contributing to society. I think leadership is not something you acquire when you start to work. I think your entire childhood and education and work that develops in you good work ethics starts to build responsibility in you towards yourself, your family, your country, right from that early age. And I was lucky in my unlucky circumstances of being a refugee to learn to work hard and to value work. Well, I came back to Rwanda in 1995. And anybody who has lived here or even haven't seen that time have heard the stories. They were horrific. It was immediately after genocide. Rwanda was in a mess. The economy was completely gone. A lot of people had died. Many were disillusioned because of what had happened. A lot of refugees from 1959 until 1994 were coming back. There were a lot of dead bodies all over the country. A lot of mines that were blowing up people. The state was just learning from zero what to do. So, and having lived in many countries outside Rwanda, there was nothing like it anywhere else. It was a bad situation. And people themselves were at each other's throats, because there were those who committed genocide, there were those who survived genocide, and anything else in between. But then, of course, it's like God saw that situation and sent us the right leadership that you don't find in many places in the world, that were able to start mending. That's what I can call it. It was mending the different parts of our national fabric. The economy, security, education, health, unity, all these things building from zero, from under zero actually. Until today, where we are a country with hope and promise. for all Rwandans and non-Rwandans who have even preferred to leave their homes, their countries, to be part of the Rwandan story. There are a lot of Rwandans who are not born Rwandans because they see the hope and the promise that Rwanda gives anybody who lives in this country. So for me, I couldn't be anywhere else today. This is the country. Nothing drew me to aviation. I just happened to work in the Ministry of Transport as my first assignment in Rwanda. And because I was in the Ministry of Transport, Rwanda Air fell under that ministry. So I started taking responsibility for aviation functions. At one time, I was the chairman of the board of Rwanda Air. And then later on, again, I came back to that role when I retired from serving the country abroad. And then after that, I took responsibility as the chairman and CEO of Rwanda Air. Now, of course, for me, it was a beautiful coincidence because if there are many things that intrigue me in life, is how a heavy object like an aircraft can shoot in the sky and fly for hours. I couldn't understand, although I studied a bit of physics, I couldn't reconcile those two things. So I have always been amazed by aviation technology. So working for Rwanda Air was a pleasure in that regard. I think growing up as a refugee must have been the one thing that developed in me resilience. Hard work that I did not only do out of need, but also out of realizing that success depends on it. Also, I think quietly developed in me the sense of resilience. Understanding that failure is not an option, that you can fail 2, 3, 10 times and still get up and pursue whatever it is you're pursuing until you succeed. Leadership is something you develop with time from developing good values. Now, I grew up in a Christian home, again in a refugee conditions, and we were taught Christian values. And when you develop good values, not only from Christianity, but also from tradition and culture, respecting parents and valuing life, I think all these things put together encourage you to want to inculcate the same values in other people. And I think that is probably the basis of leadership. The way you are brought up, the value system that you develop from childhood, from your parents, from your siblings, from the society around you, in a way require of you to live by those values personally. And if you give sufficient attention to your values, it's difficult to have a set of values for you personally and another set of values for your professional life. So the tendency is to carry those same values through your professional life, especially if you're a Christian, because you can't be a Christian today and something else tomorrow. First of all, growing up myself in a family, There are a lot of good things I learned from there, but of course there are some things that were not that good. Now, becoming a father myself, raising children, is another phase that show you the ups and downs of parenting. But then experiencing a society like ours where you see a lot of good things out of parenting, but also you see a lot of not so good things that are happening, encourages you to want to give a contribution towards how we could do better. Now, one thing that, or rather two things I keep mentioning that really got me to start writing this book was the experience of studying in a school that encourages work, manual work, and then going to work there myself and run that program, and then sharing with people who left that school, sharing their experience, how that experience molded them into the kind of people they are, the successful people they have become. But finally, the final stroke that got me started to write is a meeting I went to here in Kigali where they were discussing the future for the youth and what we can do to help them succeed with the difficult life that we know is ahead of us. And some young people expressed disappointment in their own parenting, and some parents expressed their discouragement in the way they are managing their children unsuccessfully. So I felt that there was a need to make some kind of holistic contribution to this process. So that's how I started writing this book. It's not only about parenting, but it's also about education. Two lessons that are based on research by Harvard. One is that children are more likely to be successful if they grow up in a loving home, loving environment. Now, you know there are many homes that are not showing love to their children because the parents themselves are in conflict. That's one issue that I try to bring out. Now, you cannot provide love to a child if the parents themselves don't have it between themselves. And sometimes it's not their fault. The thing is, who taught anybody how to plan their marriage, how to manage their marriage, so that that marriage can exude love? Not only to the children, but also to even those who come into the home. This is one thing that society has totally failed. I mean, my grandparents' generation, my parents' generation, my generation, now my children's generation, and all of us get into marriage the same way. Nobody has learned anything from the mistakes we make and say, what can we do about it? In that book, I'm challenging all of us to say, what can we do to change this behavior of all of us getting married without any kind of skills that help us to understand how marriages should operate. In fact, the English put it well. They say people fall in love and they get married. Now, if you fall in love, it's like you're stumbling into it with no plans. At least it's a good expression. Whether that's what really happens, I don't know. So if we want children to grow in loving homes, we need to step back and say, how can we create loving homes? By bringing together two people, a woman and a man, who have been trained to manage a home well, manage a home that has love in it. The second issue that was raised by this research is the issue of doing chores at home. Now, I know a lot of families in this country who came especially from exile, like me, who did a lot of hard work. Some call it punishment. And they have decided that since now they are in their own home, in their own country, with all the freedoms, their children will not suffer the way they suffered. So the children have not learned to work. Everything is given to them. Now, then they go to school, and schools don't necessarily include work, physical work, in the curriculum. Now, people might assume that work is simply meant to give productivity that we need. But really, work from the time a child is not yet able to walk. That work, those chores, the play that children engage in, all of it build our brain. That's what we need to build the brain. Now, of course, if I step back a little bit, something that people can learn from this book too is that the initial development of our brain is from the words we hear our parents say, the language, the conversation they have with an unborn child. That language, the words, are what really stimulates the brain to grow. If you took a child and fed it in a room which is silent until they are 2 years old, those children will never have a useful brain. So one thing parents can learn from this, or future parents can learn from this, is to prepare themselves to speak to their children, their unborn children, their children who have not learned yet to speak. Those words build their brains. They can make a difference between a mediocre child and a genius child. Speaking to them. You can speak to them all the time they are awake. Don't stop talking. And by the way, I believe strongly that the reason God gave women the ability to talk more than men is because they stay with their children more than their husbands. So women being able to speak a lot is not a negative thing. It's a totally positive thing. And I hope women would learn to use that talent effectively as they parent their children. You can imagine that the people that are under your custody, more than any other people, are your children. So you learn to support them, you learn to counsel with them, you learn to encourage them, you learn to guide them. All those are leadership qualities that do help one to improve their leadership role wherever they are. If you consider all the people that I interacted with through my life, are not even a fraction of how many people I can interact with all over the world through that book. For the last 15 years, I have done more things that I'm very proud about, probably than equivalent years of my professional life, which revealed to me that there is more life after retirement than before. There are more achievements, there are more opportunities to be useful after retirement than before retirement. And so, in addition to writing this book during retirement, I work with a team of other people to teach people how to live a more healthy lifestyle. And more than 700 Rwandese have come to that program since, many of them with improved health. This has nothing to do with medical services. It has to do with preventive health, taking care of your health, and so avoid to go to see a doctor. And this, in a way, helps to one to live longer, healthy and happy. and productive. And as a result of that, I've also started to teach people, to train professionals how to prepare for retirement. Because most people think that retirement is a time of going to do nothing, to start getting sick, and soon after that die. But I'm realizing that you can live as long after retirement as before retirement, if you know what to do. One of them is promoting that book. Another one is promoting those two other initiatives I just told you, teaching people about healthful living, healthful lifestyle, and also teaching people that life after 60 is better than life before 60. One thing I can tell them is hard work. Working hard can take you places that you never imagined. There are no two ways about it. If you need something good, you need to work for it. Secondly, is upholding values. Being a person that is reliable, respectful, humble, hardworking, and the rest of the long list of good values, because those are the ones that give you also your value in society. People can trust you, can depend on you, can call on you when there's need, and so on and so forth. Like everybody else, I stumbled through parenting because I didn't know better. I knew like everyone else. But the experience of parenting, especially things I saw my wife doing, raising our children, it made me think and start to ask questions. And of course, read about other people's experiences. And that's when I realized that, collectively, we all have a lot of experiences that could be useful for those who haven't become parents yet. They shouldn't find out like us at the end. They should find out before, so that they can raise better generations. And that's why I believe that if we can bring all that experience together, we can develop curriculum and teach young people about marriage, about parenting, long before they consider those roles for themselves.